So I'm speaking to Mitch, who's an Australian-born, obviously, engineer, producer, who sees himself very often now in LA, but you come back and forth, but you spend a lot of time in LA, and you've worked on some massive records and artists. I mean, we're talking Snoop Dogg, Beyonce. I was reading Elton John. There was just, the who's who there. It's just, I'm so proud of you, mate. I
Thank
just,
you.
I think we all are. It's awesome. And I'm really glad that you took time out of, I know what's a pretty busy schedule. We had to postpone this the other day because you were in a session all of a sudden. So thanks for today. So I came back from NAM, and I thought I'd make a short series of videos with people that are very experienced and very good in the industry. And I just wanted to get your opinion and take on a couple of things. And this is just to assist young engineers and producers coming up. So my question to you is, if you were starting today was day one for you as someone who wanted to be a producer or engineer, with all of your experience, what should your mindset be from day one? Like, what should be in your action plan from day one? And so this can be stuff that you've learned, lessons learned, and even stuff that's gone wrong. But what should your psyche be from day one if you're someone new wanting to be as awesome as you are?
Well, first of all, thank you. You're very kind. And secondly, look, I saw you post the other day a 30 year. This is the 30th year of Crystal Mastering. I think I first, and this plays into your answer as well. But I think we first crossed paths in 1996 with the band that I was in, the Mark Rochelle produced,
Yeah.
in Epsom Road. So it's been a long association, and this feeds very much into my answer of not just for making records, but I think if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room, and that's something that I think is really important in terms of being in the developing in our business. So I learned an incredible amount early on, not just from Mark, but from you and John, and by being in rooms that people were better at doing what I wanted to do than I was. And being in a mastering suite is one of those real, nothing shows more. I remember a long time ago talking to people who were back in the old like internet forum, like Melbourne days, and there was a few people would pop up, and one of my suggestions at that point was like, you need to go and get someone to master your records, because you're going to hear the faults if the way that I see mastering in particular is that if I was going to change something, or if I could hear a problem with what I was doing, I would change it. Then all of a sudden you're getting in a superior room with people who listen to not now, but primarily stereo material, where you got way fewer options than I've got, when I've got every single sound's under a different fader, and I can keep moving things up and down forever. All of a sudden you go into mastering, and you're sitting in attended mastering, and you can hear, wow, and the big one for me, coming to Crystal all those years ago was, where are my kick drums? Like I wasn't heavy enough with
Yeah.
kick drums. So listening to my mixes and then putting them up against, I can't remember what the record was, but it might have been big American produced Green Day stuff or something
Blink
like that.
182, probably.
There you go. Yeah. And then you're listening in the room and go, oh, fuck. Yeah. Like why am I so afraid of the kick drum? But that's something that I wouldn't have learned without, going to attended mastering, for example.
Yeah.
I think sometimes if it's in an unattended, and look, I'd say 95% of my mix work is unattended. And to be honest, I prefer it that way. But if I was wanting to improve the craft, you've got to be in the room, because you get that instant feedback
Yep.
of, this is what my work is missing, this is where I could improve, this is what had to happen in mastering to bring it up to a level that's releasable, all that sort of stuff. So that's the first one for me, is that you need to get around people who know what they're doing more than you do. And there's, like, not wanting to shit on the Australian experience, but there's positives and negatives the way things are, or the way things were for me. So when I first got a job, I was doing a lot of live sound, and then I got a job at Studio 52, and you start off and I was the engineer, like, it's in the chair, son, off you go.
Yeah.
So I, even though I had a limited early career understanding of the craft, I wasn't sitting behind people who are much, much better at that stage, or maybe now even, than of what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Then I got to the US, and that hierarchy of producer and engineer and assistant engineer, and you're in the room. And when I first got to LA, I did some assisting with no problem whatsoever. And all of a sudden, I'm sitting behind people like Ron Fair, people like David Foster, people like Quincy Jones, Pharrell, or Pharrell's engineer, Andrew Coleman. So you're sitting behind these people who not only have got such a wonderful grasp of the craft, but who've been doing it at a very, very high level. Talk about Ron. Like at that stage, Ron was not only was he still making records and producing records, but he's the chairman of Geffen Records at the point. So we're talking about one of the few people. I'd say him. I'd say Rick Rubin. I'd throw in Jimmy Iovine into that little group who have engineered records, have produced records, and have also led major labels at an international level. There's not a lot of people like that. So when you get the opportunity to be in those rooms, you learn so much so fast. And that leads into the second part of my answer, which would be people always say that you need to say yes to everything. I think early career you do, like very much so, but it comes with a caveat that you need to have a high enough understanding of the technical side of our craft to, once you've said yes, to be able to pull it off. Because if you say yes and you can't pull it off, that's I wouldn't say it's career ending, but the phone's not going to ring. So what happened to me, especially, when I got to the US, I didn't have an enormous amount of experience with SSL. I'd worked on a whole lot of other consoles, but for one reason or another, hadn't spent a lot of time working on big SSLs. So you get in the room and someone says, for example, of all the annoying things, do you know how to do G-series automation? And you say yes. And then you've got, from the minute you say yes to the moment you need to do it, to go and learn it. And you've got to know how to do it. Now, I worked at Record Plant on and off for nearly 6 years, and I think I had to use the G-series automation once because it's clunky and the Pro Tools automation is better. There's better ways of doing things, but if I had to use it, I could go and get it to work. The J and the K a bit more, they're a bit. The automation got used on them a bit more, but not so much now. But that's just an example of you've got to say yes, but then you've got between the time you say yes to the minute you have to do it to actually know how to do it, because otherwise you just look like you're a fraud.
So you've got to back yourself. If you say yes, you have to back yourself and do it.
Yeah. But then you need to somehow do the work to actually learn. So one of the advantages of working in a big room or big house like Record Plant was there's 4 big studios there. So and the way that we're primarily making hip hop and pop records. So a lot of it there was vocals over beats, 1 channel in, 2 channels out. And a lot of engineers coming up through that system were very, very accomplished at that. But then you put a band in the big room or you put an orchestra in the room and they struggle because they don't necessarily have, not that they don't have the understanding of it, but they don't have the muscle memory of doing large scale multi-track recording. And that's where I was a little bit lucky because I came up on tape. I have that. To this day, I still have a relatively firm understanding of signal flow. And I think that one of the pitfalls is that you can, and this isn't shitting on anyone who's like bedroom producers. It's really, really not. I want to make that, because I want to make that really clear. That being said, you can work out how to make tracks in Pro Tools or Ableton, Logic, whatever, GarageBand, don't care. And that's fine. And you can make some really, really wonderful stuff. Let's use Kevin Parker as an example of somebody who can do some weird and wonderful stuff on Ableton, big records. My question would be, though, somebody like that, what happened? What's the understanding of phase between 3 M50s and a Decatree, or what's the difference if we've got we're doing orchestral stuff, and what happens? Where should I put my microphones? Which one should I? Whatever. And I was really lucky that a little stint I did in Sydney a few years back, working for ABC Classic FM, that got to really hone those chops. So when I get a call to do the orchestral stuff, it's not it's kind of second nature. But when I started doing the orchestral stuff, I had an understanding of it. I did a classical performance degree, so I understand the repertoire and I understand the aesthetic, but hadn't necessarily worked with a symphony orchestra before until I was doing it. I'd done a lot of smaller ensemble stuff and film work, but all of a sudden I've got Sydney Symphony Orchestra on the stage, live to air, direct broadcast. There's no room to fail. So that's one of those things of, can you do this? Yes, I can. And you've got from the second you say, yes, I can, to every minute learning what you need to do to succeed. And I'm going in circles because I do that, but I'm talking about the record plant thing because there was most of the sessions in the afternoons and evenings. So I didn't have a lot of experience with SSL, but quickly found out that the runners show up at 9 o'clock in the morning to clean. So if I showed up at 9 o'clock in the morning, I could sit in a room by myself, and it's so geeky and it's so boring, but you find where the oscillator is, you turn the oscillator with your one patch cable, and I just started plugging shit in and watched meters pop up. And it's like, okay, this connects there, this connects there, this connects there, until I absolutely understood the signal flow of all those rooms. All four rooms were similar because the way that the SSL patch bay is laid out. But when Pharrell walks in and says, or will.i.am walks in with 47 different keyboards, and you've got to make it work, you've already pushed tone around. You found out where things work and where they don't work. If they don't work, you find out why they don't work and you fix them, or you tell the tech, but that's the whole thing of, you've got to understand this stuff so inherently that when you get lent on, it's just muscle memory, and you don't burn out.
And it's the same thing when I started mastering. I had to go in on weekends and just learn where everything was going, how everything was patched, particularly at the very beginning. But what you're really talking about is you're going the extra mile here. So if you don't put that effort in, like you rocking up in the morning with the cleaners and stuff and learning how to use the desk, I mean, that's what has probably separated you from a lot of other people. Your willingness to do that extra deep stuff that it seems too hard for a lot of people, but you recognized that, and I'm sure you've done that many times in your career where you've recognized, I need to go the extra mile here to get this done. So that's a superpower for you to recognize that you have to put in that effort to do it, because if you don't put effort in, nothing happens.
Look, I appreciate that. The way that I look at it, though, is I started to look like an idiot, because I understand. Look, I don't know who it was. Someone a long time ago said, luck is when opportunity meets endeavor, and that's something that stuck with me. And I get people saying that I was lucky to work at record plants, in particular in my whole American journey, and I was. But that being said, I pissed off from my family, sold everything that I owned, went there on basically on a wing and a prayer, and mainly through the reason I went there was mainly out of ego to see if I could cut it, because I could have hung, and this is with no disrespect to any of the people making records in Australia, because in some ways I think it's more difficult because of the size of the market and the infrastructure. But I could have probably just hung out in Melbourne and made records and been okay, because I was okay.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, none of that story to me sounds like luck. That's persistence and grit. That's persistence, grit, and determination. None of that sounds lucky to me.
Thank you, but you're another one who, the Mutual Admiration Society. I remember stories of you talking about what it took to convince a bank manager to get your first GML 8200. I remember all that shit from a lifetime ago. So from your perspective, I think that you've got an understanding of what it takes, because you're still doing it and have done it. But I think that if you, the whole thing of, it's easy to look at some of the bigger records that I've made without understanding the, when I was at Studio 52, especially they were doing cool schools and stuff like that. But we'd do 200 demo days in a year when people were still making demos. So band would come in at 10 o'clock in the morning, we'd set up, we'd record 4 songs, we'd send them off for lunch when we repatch everything. I'd mix 4 songs, basically an hour a song in the afternoon, and then master them, in a day.
Yep.
So no one sees all that. Now, at the time, was the quality of the work great? Probably not, if I'm being honest, because it's early in career for me, and it's too fast to be making a record. But in terms of again, like understanding signal flow and things like that, like that's where it all comes from. Because if you didn't make it work, it didn't work. I go one step back even further from that. Then working for wonderful people, my first ever job in audio was doing live sound for a company out of Warrnambool, of all places, called Versatile Productions. And the best thing about doing medium to large scale live is, if you don't get it right, the noise doesn't come out of the speakers while you're in a pub with however many people there on a Friday night listening to a cover band. And you've just got to get it right, because if you don't have it plugged in right, all of a sudden, we don't get to hear K-San at 2:00 in the morning. So it's that part of it in terms of the understanding the real big picture stuff with the craft. I think that's the main reason why I think that way. The other thing I was going to say was, I think the software was built, especially Pro Tools, which is my I won't say that I know everything about Pro Tools, because nobody does, but I know nothing like I know Pro Tools. I know it inside out.
Yeah.
That it's built with an implied understanding of analog signal flow, and I think people miss that. And little things, and this is getting super geeky, but like little things like understanding what the relationship between DBFS and DBVU and how that all works out is that when we're a record plant, we would go through channel by channel and would calibrate machines to work out that some people wanted Pro Tools to spit out at minus 0 dBVU equals minus 18. Some wanted minus 20. It doesn't matter what it is, but we'd calibrate every channel.
Yep.
And then you start to think about, well, what's going on inside the computer? What's going on in the DAW? How does that relate to when I need to be using gear that is working, expecting something? And all of this stuff is like, we're getting very, very far away from your question, but all of this stuff is like crucially important in making quality records. Unless you don't want to do that. If you want to put if you want to just put like CLA vocals on everything, and I've had to do that as well, just distort the shit out of it. If that's your record, go for it. And I've got no problem with that. And sometimes I'm asked to do it as well. But I'd like to think that the reason that my phone rings is that we're getting a certain level of, first of all, it's for my taste. And my taste is like, I like quality recordings. I don't always achieve them, but I'm always drawn to them. And but I think it's thinking about that really fine balance between understanding the physics and understanding the real nuts and bolts of what we should be doing, and then trying to plug some aesthetic choice into that, your choice, artist choice, label's choice, audience. Don't worry about them too much. But it's that's basically my philosophy in a nutshell.
Okay, and so if I rewind a bit, and I just love everything that you just said. That resonates really well. But if you rewind for what you said at the very beginning, it was about putting yourself in a place of opportunity. And you did that in a grand style, like you packed up and went overseas, right? So that's a massive thing. But do you remember? Do you remember maybe that first time that you were in a room and you're like, "Oh, I've put myself in the right spot here," and doors started to open? Was there like a pivotal moment, or was it gradual, or was there a memorable moment when that happened?
Look, there's lots of them, and there's been more of. And I say this seriously, of like, I don't understand how I got this. Like, this is a gratuitous name drop, but like I recorded Diana Ross in her house, and I got there, and she like showed me around and offered me a cup of coffee as I'm setting up, and I'm like, in what universe is Diana Ross making me a cup of coffee? Like, so there's things like that where I'm thinking like, how did I get here? A lot of the early career stuff was very intentional. And if I'm being brutally honest, I was probably better at it then than I am now, because I needed it. I just had to. Like after I finished studying, I promised myself that, again, and with no disrespect to anybody who does this, that I wasn't going to get a job at Coles. It's just like I'm going to go for this and I'm going to make it work or fail trying. Um, the I feel very, very lucky to have had some kind, talented people along the way. So, look, I don't necessarily have a relationship for no bad reason with Mark Rochelle anymore, but the band that I was in, this was before Mark did any of that, like, blew up with all the Madison Avenue stuff. And it was just a band that I found myself in, and I wanted to be an engineer. And all of a sudden found myself, my band was making a record with Mark. So down at Back Beach, and it was wonderful. And then again, like, that led to coming to you guys. And there's another step up. Then there's there's other mastering stories. Like, I think the record before we came to Crystal was Steve Smart mastered it at the old 301. And Steve and I have become, when I had a room at 301 in Sydney, Steve and I have become like, dear friends. Like, but he doesn't remember 1994 when some nothing band from Melbourne, or 95 when some nothing band from Melbourne kind of blowed up. So, or blew up to Sydney. But there's been lots of things like that. Getting to LA was I think there was a time when I was in a conversation between myself, Rose Mancherney, Alan Sides, and Ron Fair, and they're just talking about making records. And and that's another one of like, how am I? No one's ever going to believe that I'm in this conversation, or the doing some of the bigger stuff, like the Elton John stuff, being able to like literally just turn Elton John off, or now he's on and now he's off. And I felt the same thing. The Paul Kelly Hermitude thing I mixed, the same sort of thing. Like, I could just sit there and just solo Paul Kelly and turn him on and turn him off all day to my heart's content. So there's a lot of that. The thing that, and it wasn't my idea, it was a friend of mine's idea, that when I got to LA, if you rang up and said to a studio, I'm looking for work, they'd say no.
Okay.
If you rang up and said, I'm an Australian engineer, can I have a tour? All of a sudden you're a prospective client. Mm-hmm. And then you've got the from the minute you walk in the door to the minute that you leave to pitch your case, basically. So I tried that in a few rooms around town to limited success. And then I had a meeting with Paula Salvatore, who runs Capitol Studios, and Paula knew a couple of records I'd made from home. But so I walked in and she sat me down and she picked me straight away. And she said, "So you're looking for work?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I am looking for work." And
but you found a way in. That was a very unique way. Like, can I have a tour? So you put yourself, you forced yourself through the door, which is just amazing.
And from then Paula, who picked me straight away, said, I don't have anything going, but you should call my friend Rose, who's Rose Mancherney, who ran Record Plant forever.
Yep.
And by the time I drove from Hollywood and Vine to Santa Monica and La Brea, they knew I was coming. So that's how that happened. And that's where that is lucky. In terms of Record Plant was having a generational shift of their staff engineers, that a lot of them were aging out. And the ones who were there, with all due respect, at that time, were a lot of the one channel in, two channel out type engineers who were coming through. Not all of them, but a body of them. And I'd been making records long enough that I understood what was going on. So that is lucky. But I know that I put myself in that position.
You did. Yeah. I mean, you're very proactive about it. So you say luck, but I hear very proactive, someone who is putting themselves in that position of opportunity. So it may be a little bit of luck, but that saying about making your own luck, you were making it there, man. You're definitely making it. So I really salute you for that. And I think that's an important lesson for a lot of young people is, putting yourself in those positions. And it's a common story I've had with lots of engineers I've spoken to. They have just, uprooted themselves, or you don't have to uproot yourself, but just kind of force yourself through the door. So, mate, I commend you for that. I don't hear luck in any of that story, but I salute you. That's great.
You're very kind.
Yeah. Hey, can I ask you one more question? I know that you're a busy man, but I've been wrapping up these conversations with the evil word AI, right? And I just want people's kind of take on that within the music industry. I know a lot of people kind of shudder at that thought in the music industry in the moment, and it's causing ripples. And there was stuff when I went to NAM, people got really kind of anxious when anyone mentioned the word AI. Mate, I'd love your take on how things sit at 2026 with AI in the music industry. What are your thoughts?
I think you're a fool to ignore it. It's for better or worse, it is here. Um, there, it's going to have a big impact on a part of my business. So the production music stuff that we do and have done for quite a while is, I think, has been and will be affected by it, which is really sad. But that's the way it is. But in other ways, I think that if it's used embraced as a tool, I think some fun stuff can still come out of it. We've been toying with a lot of the voice modeling and voice changing stuff, especially in regard to demos. So, like, I can hold a note, but I don't sound like, for want of a better word, Billie Eilish or Lil Durk.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're creating things to try to get people's attention, sometimes we'll lean on that a little bit.
Yeah.
I think that the tracks. It might have been you that was talking about it. It was someone who I know and respect was talking about that the kids can pick it.
Yeah.
So, and I'm starting to be able to pick it. Things like on the Suno beats, it constantly it's putting in two bars of two bars of breaks before choruses all the time.
Right.
So every now and then it'll be like, yeah, that's AI, that's
right.
AI.
Right.
So I think those of us who spend far too long analysing and listening to records are gonna pick up on it. I think that I don't know what the label's going to do. That's a fool's game to try to work that out. But I think that, like everything, there's that the authentic will win out in the long run. I think it's a little bit of a shiny new toy at the moment, and it's here to stay. But I don't necessarily think it's the end of the universe. I don't want to be a Luddite. And it's something that I'm thinking about a lot at the moment. It's just like, is this worth it? And the answer is yes, it absolutely is worth it. I'm in the middle of making an Italo disco album for myself, and there's been some little things that I've lent on with that, and like a couple of little Suno things, like putting something in, getting an idea, changing it like wildly, and it's becoming a tool. So I'm not intimidated by it, but I can really understand how it's going to impact a lot of people. It's going to impact a lot of people. So that's again a long answer to a short question.
Yeah. No, mate, I appreciate your time. And before Zoom cuts me off at the end of this meeting, I have to thank you, mate, and thanks for your time.
Well, thank you, Joe. As I said, like it's funny how it creeps up, but it's like we've been crossing paths with each other for 30 years. And I still don't quite know. Like I remember when you moved, and remember the old spot, and it's bizarre how quickly these things sort of happen. So yeah, it's wonderful to see that you're still fit and firing and doing your thing. And it's a real pleasure to talk to you as always.
Thanks, mate. But I'm afraid that now you need another beer, a cold beer, because that's gone warm. All right.
My mum just brought me one. I just she put it in a stubby holder for me, so I think we'll be okay.
I love it, mate. All the very best. Thank you so much.
No worries, Joe. I'll speak to you when I have.
Thanks, pal. Ciao.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.